Hello, I'm Melissa Klepper Faith. I'm a master's student in maternal and child health at the University of North Carolina, and I'm going to talk today with you about self-compassion and teen resilience. It's hard to be a teen. It's always been hard, but particularly nowadays, there's peer pressure, social media, academics, finding your own identity, the competition of sports and dating. But in the last few years, it's been harder for teens. According to the CDC, more than a third of high school students in 2019 said that they have had persistent sadness or hopelessness. This is worse for LGBTQ students and for female students. In 2019, about 1 in 6 teens had actually made a suicide plan. And all of these statistics show that things have worsened for teens in the last 10 years or so. Now, add the COVID pandemic. With all of the restrictions that have increased stress for teens, isolation, distance learning, they may have been ill themselves, family members may have been ill, they may have even lost family members or friends. No dating, no sports. Among United States adolescents, experiences of COVID that were associated with negative outcomes have been associated with increased depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts and attempts in the last year. Now add on the stress of being different. Different from other teens in a way that makes you stand out or challenges your peers and maybe leads to exclusion, bullying, or even abuse. And this is very typical for LGBTQ teens. We know that not all schools are supportive of LGBTQ teens. And in a study, which I've been working on with trans and gender expansive teens, some of our participants told us things like this: I don't have any friends, so I make up imaginary ones. I'm afraid to go to the bathroom and be bullied, so I just hold it all day. The biggest issue for trans teenagers is self-compassion. They don't have self-compassion because it's impossible to love yourself if you're not even yourself. So LGBTQ teens face very high levels of added stress. Here's some numbers from the Trevor Project, which does a survey of LGBTQ teens. These are the results from 2020 that showed that almost 70% of LGBTQ youth have problems with anxiety. That's as high as 3 in 4 for trans kids. About a third of LGBTQ youth have been kicked out of their homes, have left, or have become homeless. And about a third have also been physically threatened or abused due to their LGBTQ identity. About 40 to 50% of LGBTQ respondents have seriously considered suicide in the last year, and this is higher for transgender and non-binary teens. One thing that can help these teens is resilience. Dr. Ann Maston calls resilience the capacity to adapt under difficult circumstances. What if there was a practice or a skill that could be learned by teens that would improve their resilience in coping and help them learn to be kind to themselves and has been shown to decrease the risk of depression and anxiety? There is mindful self-compassion. So there are 3 components to mindful self-compassion: self-kindness, which is being kind to yourself when you're suffering or you're in pain, just like you would to a beloved friend. Common humanity, which is understanding that we all have painful or challenging experiences, that this is just part of the human condition. And mindfulness, which has to do with paying attention to where you are, what's going on in the moment without judging. Now, self-compassion is not the same as self-esteem. It does not depend on other people, and it does not depend on comparing yourself to other people. And I'm going to tell you about an incredible group of kids who have learned this skill set and how this has helped them. I've been working with Dr. Karen Bluth and other colleagues at the University of North Carolina in a study called Making Friends with Yourself for Trans and non-binary gender teens. We have worked with 3 groups of teens ages 13 to 17 who are trans or gender expansive, and they have agreed to take an 8-week mindful self-compassion course, which is called Making Friends for Yourself. This is a course that is specific for teens. When we've asked them about their mental health before and after the course, our preliminary results have showed significant decreases in depression, anxiety, and stress, and increases in self-compassion and mindfulness after taking this course. Now, we know that other studies of Making Friends with Yourself and similar curricula have also seen very positive results in other teen populations, and similarly in adults. The Mindful Self-Compassion course has also shown these kinds of improvements. So where to go from here? How does mindful self-compassion fit into a public health context? Well, let's look at several groups. Let's look at 3 groups and how mindful self-compassion interventions have helped them. These are 3 groups who are at risk for depression, anxiety, and increased stress. First of all, new parents. Being a new parent is really stressful, particularly for parents who are at increased risk for depression and anxiety. So a study in Australia looked at a program called Caring for Body and Mind in Pregnancy, which was offered to prospective parents. And they found that those who participated had decreased anxiety, depression, and stress after birth. Another study looked at LGBTQ teens who were being bullied, and they found that self-compassion increased their resilience and buffered the effects of bullying on their mental health. A third group is young adult cancer survivors. These young adults are at higher risk for depression, for anxiety, social isolation, and feelings of inadequacy after they completed their treatments. So this group was offered participation in a mindful self-compassion course, and we found that it did lead to improvements in their depression and anxiety, as well as increases in self-compassion. Finally, I want to tie self-compassion back into resilience. Resilience, remember, is positive adaptation to adverse life experiences, which we're all going to have. So this has been looked at in teens. In 2018, a study looked at the association between mindful self-compassion and resilience and found that mindful self-compassion was associated with increased resilience. Adolescents who are more self-compassionate are also more resilient. The important thing here, I think, is that self-compassion is a teachable skill, and it can help increase resilience to aid teens in thriving and adapting in adversity. We can't control the fact that the world is changing all the time or that there's lots of stress, but we can help kids gain the tools to adapt successfully to stress and to adversity through practices like mindful self-compassion. Thank you very much.